Hello, everyone. It's that time again for Paper Movies. Today, Adam has made his grand return to the podcast.
Glad to be back.
John, oh, glad to have you. John is here too from our Predator 2 stream. And we also have Marcel, the Revenist.
Yeah, whatever. It's all good.
So, anyway, we're going to be talking about the novelization to the 2004 film The Punisher by D.A. Stern. When an arms deal goes wrong and Howard Saint, known criminal / socialite's son, is killed in the crossfire, he and his wife plan revenge on the man responsible. And that man is Frank Castle. They're not just going to kill him, but his whole family. And in doing so, they unleash the Punisher. So this is the only time we've ever gotten a film or direct film origin for the Punisher. Back in 88 or 89, Dolph Lundgren was the Punisher in a film that is not worth seeing unless you want to have a drunken laugh. It's the Punisher gun down a bunch of ninjas with an M60 that has an underbarrel grenade launcher for some reason. But this is the only time we've really gotten the Punisher in the full regalia, because after this with Warzone, we would get the faded Punisher logo, like the faded skull, like they were embarrassed to have it in their movie, which that would be the thing they're embarrassed about with Warzone, but we'll get to that. This is an amalgamation of two Punisher comics, the first being Year One, which came out in 94, and the Punisher Welcome Back Frank, Garth Ennis's beginning to his wonderful tenure on Punisher that has been surpassed by no one. What we get is just a weird amalgamation of the two in Tampa for some reason.
Yeah.
I guess for tax breaks. That's the only thing I can think of, other than they wanted it to be different from Daredevil and Spider-Man, which came out around the same time. The only other Marvel film of this time that doesn't really take place in New York is the Ang Lee Hulk, which is incredibly a peculiar thing that maybe someday we'll talk about that novelization.
It's the weirdest superhero movie ever.
Is that the one with the giant dogs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay.
And it tries to look like a comic book with weird panels that move around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they got the director of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon to which you wouldn't be able to know that by looking at the whole weird thing. Anyway, so what we get from Year One is really the whole origin of Punisher, although instead of having the Mickey Duca character, the annoying ballet Mickey Duca who loves his marijuana, we get a washed up reporter that works for the Daily Bugle who helps him track down all the mobsters in Year One. We also get his whole monologue in that, where he's like, it's not revenge, it's punishment, basically. That comes from Year One, as well as putting the skull on the flat vest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome Back, Frank. All the neighbor stuff, that's all from Welcome Back, Frank, as well as the Russian, but toned down because Garth Ennis's stuff is unfilmable. I've never seen Preacher, but I know from The Boys that people are really hesitant to directly adapt anything Garth Ennis. I can't wait for when they do The Pro, a superhero comic where it's about a prostitute who gets superpowers and decides to be better at her job rather than be a superhero.
It's so early 2000s. It's not even funny.
But anyway, what is this? There's also a comic book adaptation of this. Not really worth talking about. It's 3 issues. The only thing it does is it adds in a Kuwait prologue where Jimmy Weeks saves Frank Castle. Jimmy Weeks is his pal who's made up for this film. Basically, he has gambling debts and he sells out Frank to save his own skin. Because the place he gambles at is where Howard Saint helps launder the money.
Yeah.
But anyway, what did we think of the Punisher novelization?
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I thought
Really,
it was.
really.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say really, really strong start to this book. I was instantly sucked into the world.
As for me, I mean, it's a good story, but I'm not sure it's really a good Punisher story. I mean, it's one of those things where if this was just like, random vigilante man, I think it would be better. But like for Punisher, it doesn't feel like he should really be there. It doesn't feel like a superhero story in any real meaningful way. I mean, if you replace him with just like Jack Oliver, you'd get basically the same story.
Or what was it? The Executioner, the Don Pendleton character, which is what Frank Castle is based loosely inspired by, is the Executioner.
It was
But
definitely
yeah,
more brutal than the movie. I haven't seen the director's cut or the extended edition, as you were mentioning earlier, Jeremy, but definitely more brutal, especially when it came to like the scene where his family was executed by the mafia.
yeah, yeah. When
It-
they hunt him down to Puerto Rico at the family reunion.
That was the
yeah,
hardest part to read because that came like nearly halfway through the book. And so like they
Yeah,
spend half the book just building up Frank and his family and then killing them very quickly.
I think
but
well, it's a defective scene. The only problem I have with it is it doesn't feel like it belongs in this book because once you get past that, the rest of the book's just kind of uh, it feels very early 2000s-y. It doesn't feel nearly as brutal. I mean, it feels like that's a rated R scene in a PG-13 movie, more or less.
yeah. And it's the problem with this story. Although I love this film, specifically the extended cut, it 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 flounders between him coming back
Yeah.
and finally going after Saint directly, which is it's how year one plays out too. If you've ever read Punisher year one, this is how it's paced. Although in that there's a lot more Frank Castle pride. Um,
So I watched the movie years and years and years ago, so I barely remembered it when I read this novelization. So I was almost like reading the story for the first time. And I thought he was going to come back and just go on some unhinged vigilante tear and just kill everybody who wronged him. But instead, I was joking to you, Jeremy. It's like the Count of Monte Cristo. He has like this like elaborate plan that he wants to,
makes
you
the
know,
tougher.
yeah,
He drives Howard Saint nuts,
yeah,
and that works better in a book than it does a film.
for sure.
yeah,
Um,
I
I can agree
agree.
with that.
and my needless to say, this is the only Punisher novel we have ever gotten. Period. Unlike with other Marvel superheroes, where they'll get a novel periodically, whether it be original or an adaptation of the comics, this is the only one we've ever gotten, and that's probably a good thing. Um, because it gets a little long winded of a story, and with the origin story mixed with Welcome Back Frank, I can see why they did it, because Welcome Back Frank was done because they ran out of ideas for the Punisher character, And so they at first made him brainwashed to join the mafia, then canceled that series, and then they killed him to bring him back as an angel of death, and he was going to work with heaven to bring evil to justice, and it went for 4 issues and everyone hated it. So
And then there was Frankencastle. Don't
well,
forget that.
that came after. It came almost a decade after, if I'm not mistaken.
Wait,
Frank
explain
Castle's
what's
not that bad.
Frankencastle?
Oh,
What's
Frankie
this?
Castle during the siege event
Yeah.
where Norman Osborn tries to make sword a thing instead of shield. Frank Castle tries to assassinate him. It goes horribly wrong and he's killed only to be brought back to life as a Frankenstein monster.
So it's literally like Frankencastle. Oh
Yes.
God.
It becomes a grindhouse, but it's actually not bad. That's Rick Remender, and he does a good job with the schlockiness of it. And then he actually they reset the status quo again with a miniseries called In the Blood, which also brings back Jigsaw, um, which is another interesting thing with this book. So this book does add some things
Uh-huh.
and it implies things because there was definitely intent for a second one of these that never came to be. But one of the things is that the idea was that Howard Saint's other son would live from having a bomb tied to him, and he would come
Right.
back with Jigsaw. In fact, that is the final boss of the Punisher video game.
I was actually going to mention that because they have like events that tie into this movie and the novelization. It's kind of loosely tied because like Thomas Jane comes back as the Punisher in that game,
Mhm.
but this time it takes place in New York City, and they make it feel more like how the movie like how it could have been as a comic book movie, if that makes sense.
Yes, but at the same time, they do mention the Saints,
Hmm.
and they do the Never Fall Down in New York City, which is an issue from when after Welcome Back Frank, where he's actually tracking down someone who served with him in Nam, and he ends up killing him because he's become a criminal, which is a really really sad one shot. Um, but yeah, that so like the game does a weird thing where it also brings in like Nick Fury's brought in, Black Widow, Iron Man, which gets really wild because there's a mission where you end up in Stark Tower.
And
Uh,
Matt Murdock briefly appeared too.
Matt Murdock briefly appears. Kingpin's in it, which makes sense.
Hmm.
And it is comic book Kingpin, not the Ben Affleck. I can't remember who's the actor who played Kingpin in that movie.
Michael Clark
Michael
Duncan.
Clark Duncan. Yeah.
He was great. He's the only good part of that movie.
Yeah.
And I don't care what people say. Like, watch the director's cut. The director's cut's not good. It still has the seesaw fight between Matt Murdock and Elektra.
It's just a dull movie all around, really. I mean, that's really the big problem with superhero movies of the early 2000s. They're just really insufferably dull. They don't really do anything.
Except Spider-Man.
Except Spider-Man. There was this weird trend in that time where they tried to because they thought superheroes were silly, and so they tried to make them, I don't know, not even like grittier, but really just like make them more realistic. So you had like Daredevil, even like Smallville used to do that, and like they'd have like Clark in like a jacket instead of like a cape or something like that, right?
Yeah, the X-Men are in the leather that they are in the Mets.
Right.
Yeah, I like that because this does that too, where he's not in the jumpsuit because Punisher did wear the Kevlar jumpsuit,
Right.
even to up until like the 2010s. In mainline 616 Punisher, he wore that outfit pretty much. This is the departure. This is more like Max, the Max look. The Max is the t-shirt and the flak vest that's just a vest with the skull, which would end up becoming a thing in Nathan Edmondson's run, but he also added a skull ski mask, which is only in that run. I think that was because of the Thunderbolts connection, but they never really did anything with that because he was part of the Thunderbolts at one point until the Thunderbolts tried to kill him.
All right, here's a question for you. So, because you know all this Punisher lore, so in the novelization, he gets his skull shirt from his son, right? Like literally, like right before the son gets killed. He's like, "I bought it for you at this market the night before, in Puerto Rico." Is that from any of the comic sources?
No, there's never really, as far as I know, an explanation for the skull.
Okay.
I like that. I don't like that his family's changed. There's not two kids because he had a daughter and son in the comics.
Yeah.
Which, the only time they've done that is Warzone, which is the scraps of Punisher 2 put into a script.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Warzone's a fine film. It's a bit cringy at times. It's more cringy than this.
They did kind of try to explain the skull, and I know Daredevil season 2, it was like supposed to be a representation of his skull because like it references like Frank Castle's X-ray, and it showed that skull, and that's that was like the only time I think they ever had, like, that I know of, that they had any type of explanation for it. But I haven't read a lot of the comics, so
yeah. I will say this book it does what a lot of novelizations do, which is instead of showing something, it gets a little talky. It's a bit talky, especially with Mickey Duca's interrogation is a bit more talky. It's funnier, and it's kind of a funny scene in the film.
Yeah.
He takes a acetylene torch, torches a steak, and then dips a popsicle into the torched steak and pokes him with it.
That is so early 2000s, though. I mean, there's one
Rob Schneider up there.
Yeah. The thing about the novel really is like you have some really good crime drama stuff. And I'm not even a fan of crime drama, and I was actually kind of getting pulled into it. But once you get to like the superhero stuff, it feels really that early 2000s cheese that tries to be serious while also being goofy if you think about it for more than 2 seconds. Like, why would Frank Castle show up to talk to Jimmy Weeks in the first place? Couldn't they have just arrested him there or detained him in some way?
Who in the comic, he gets arrested gunning down the two guys in Saints Tower in the comic. And then they let him walk out, and then they say you're fired from the FBI, which is not a thing in any other version of this. But I will say that the theatrical cut of this film cuts out most of the Jimmy Weeks stuff, and I think that is a misstep.
Would you say that it makes the movie weak?
Well, it makes the betrayal make no sense.
Yeah.
They cut that all out.
Yeah, I'm glad that they added that in this novelization because otherwise it was, for the most part, you know, the movie, there was like additional other scenes like with what's the name of the brothers that
Morrow brothers.
Yeah, like there's like this whole thing where one of them is like trying to, like, you know, go after Howard Saint's wife, and he's like taking note of like every time like he makes like a move on her. And but yeah, I like that they added the thing with Jimmy Weeks because like I was like how is he gonna find out, when's he gonna find out, you know?
Yeah, that was some good dramatic tension. I knew the moment that he let Mickey Duca leave alive after the torture scene, I was like, oh God, everybody's going to find out that he's alive. And then, like John, just like you said, like he's just there revealing himself to Jimmy and I think the chief of the FBI or whatever. I was like, what are you doing? Why are you letting everybody know you're alive? This makes no sense.
Exactly. And, you know, for a Punisher, once again, I'm not saying the story's bad, but like this is supposed to be the Punisher. There's really not a lot of death in this book. Like, I know that if this were done today, there'd be a lot more death. I mean, his family gets blasted. That's bad. After that, how many people does Frank Castle actually take down in the movie? Like, seriously. And the villains, they don't. I like the villains a lot because they're not crazy and stupid. They eventually do get crazy at the end, but like they're actually pretty. Honestly, the villains make more sense than our hero does. Because, like, you don't just have Saint going around shooting people randomly. And actually, he knows how to not bring the heat down until the end. But it makes sense by the end.
Yeah, it's not Ma Nucci, which is the Welcome Back Frank villain, where she wants Punisher kills both of her sons, similar to Howard Saint. He throws one off of the Empire State Building.
Oh, God.
But this is the same arc where she and like a couple of her goons chase him into the Central Park Zoo, and he feeds a man to piranhas. He holds him under the water, and he pulls him out, and he's just a feet and a skeleton afterward. And then my favorite scene is he and Manucci end up in the polar bear pit, and the polar bear's confused, so he gets it angry by punching the polar bear in the face, and it rips off Manucci's arms and legs. Like turns her into Darth Vader. In fact, they actually make it like an Empire Strikes Back Darth Vader look where she has a machine that puts a wig on her head.
Oh my God.
But she's a ridiculous character. She's a Garth Ennis character.
Yeah, sounds like it.
True. But the Russian, we got to talk about. Well, there is the guy who sings the song that Punisher shoots with a ballistic knife.
Oh, Harry Heck, I think his
Harry
name was.
Heck, which the song in the film is infinitely better than the song sung in the book.
Is that the cowboy? Or
Yes.
yeah,
The Johnny Cash wannabe.
yeah.
That actor actually did play Johnny Cash in like one movie a while ago. I did look that up.
Oh,
Wait, that was Joaquin Phoenix?
No, it was. But the Russian fight is very faithful to the comic, and it is except for the Russian isn't saying stupid nonsense throughout.
Right. Does he die the same way in the comic?
He gets his head cut off.
Okay, that's so much cooler than what
then
happened.
later they bring the Russian back on a different body that has giant breasts. Because it's Garth.
God.
It's Garth Ennis. This is the same run where Punisher, because Garth Ennis has a hatred for superheroes, which is really funny. I think it's Spider-Man, Deadpool, and Wolverine are trying to. It's either Deadpool or Daredevil, because Daredevil. There's a couple incidents of Daredevil and Punisher fighting Garth Ennis's run, and Daredevil gets his ass whooped, and it's hilarious every time. But the three of them try to gang up on Frank Castle, and he runs over Wolverine with a steamroller, like a steamroller.
It's pretty effective. I mean,
but yeah, no.
I thought that Russian fight was really anticlimactic in the book at the end, right at the end, because they fall down a set of stairs together, and I mean, Frank's relatively unharmed, but the Russian broke his neck.
Well, he's not fully unharmed. He stays in a state of unconsciousness for several hours.
That's right. Yeah.
Back together.
I did say relatively unharmed. His neck's still intact.
Yeah, he's alive.
I like how in the movie,
a hole in his chest.
I like how in the movie when they're trying to treat his wounds and everything, like, and he's like saying, "I don't want a hospital." Like Spacker Dave was just like, "I know what he wants," and just brings like a tall bottle of like whiskey, and he's just like downing it like it's Coke or something like that.
Nah.
Which I do like. Spacker Dave is accurate to the comic. They don't call him that in the film. They just call him Dave. He's a little goofier in the comic. Bumpo, though, is Mr. Bumpo in the comic, who gets stuck in his door, and Frank Castle has to like help him out because he's just so overweight.
He's a
But
big
my
guy.
favorite is he has a stroke. They can't get him out of the apartment, so they had to break a hole in a wall with a wrecking ball. And then they take a crane and they bring him out.
Wow. That's like some Judge Dredd stuff.
Yeah, and then Joan's completely different. They make Joan kind of a pseudo love interest, which is dumb. I don't like that. I liked how the book handles it, because in the Welcome Back Frank arc, Joan is like kind of a mousy girl who's just like, she has a crush on him, but she has no self confidence in herself, and
Right.
he helps her to be like that's her whole arc, is that she helps him and she becomes more of like an assertive person, and like she wants to leave the city, but she's afraid of leaving the city, and they get the money at the end and both Welcome Back Frank and this, which I think is the Saint Tower money.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
The 50 million that went out the window.
Yeah. Well,
That
he had
money? Yeah.
boxes filled
Oh,
for
yeah.
plot reasons.
For plot reasons.
And then the rest went out the window. I do like the other Saint son is just a turd of a human.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He's the worst. The Quentin stuff I think is underutilized because he's creepy.
Yeah.
He's creepy, but they don't do a lot of it. Which I prefer that it's Quentin Glass who ends up like torturing Dave, because in Welcome Back Frank, it's just like nobodies that do it, pull out the piercings and stuff.
I will say this: like, if this wasn't from the early 2000s, Dave and Bumpa would both be killed. Like,
absolutely, yeah.
Like, it makes no sense that they're actually left alive. I'm actually kind of happy that they are. I mean, that's one of the early 2000s things, and I'm kind of happy is in this story, be it in the book or the movie, is that like they don't go all bloodbath on like Frank's allies or anything.
It's not Warzone where they do that.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. They killed one of his allies.
They killed two of them because they killed Microchip. Well, he has to kill Microchip, and then the former gangbanger guy who I never remember his name, who's original for that. But yeah, it's weird. He does all this stuff on his own without Microchip. I will say that Microchip, for those of you who don't know, is computer guy. He's the guy who gets him all his tech and stuff, and sometimes his arms guy too. It depends. And Micro help. Well, in the original comics, Microchip and his son, Microchip Jr., both help, but Microchip Jr. is actually, I'm going to get to that comic soon, reviewing for my channel, but they kill Microchip Jr. off. And it is unlike in modern comics where it'd be a full splash page and it'd be the cliffhanger. It's one little panel and you miss it. You blink and you miss it. And then it just, the Microchip's reaction to it is just the saddest thing. But yeah, I'm glad that they didn't kill them off. The neighbors get a happy ending. He becomes the Punisher. Saint gets burned alive, being dragged through his car lot, which is actually established as his in the book, with them killing that rando guy. The one thing we have not talked about is the Howard Saint running for governor thing, and I want to get for that.
That was honestly, I didn't really see that as being necessary, because I don't know, it's just like I don't even really know why it was added, but like it was just, I think it was just fine without it, because like he was already pretty powerful figure, whether political title or not. So
I think there was this one part, I think it's close to the end of the book, right before Howard Saint kicks it, where he's like musing on the fact that he can't run for governor now because like his wife is dead and his sons are dead. And I was laughing about it. I was like, yeah, too much controversy, but it did seem kind of shoehorned in there to me. I mean, it was just like it was like a little extra something, but they never really went anywhere with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like additional peril. Just be like, oh no, if Frank Castle doesn't stop him, he can become the governor of Florida. I mean, he's not the worst. I mean, there's a politician in my state of Texas. I think he's a senator or something. I forget what his name is, but basically, there's some controversy. His mistress mysteriously covered herself in gasoline and set herself on fire.
Wow.
Total
Cruz, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't Cruz. It was another one. It was one that nobody's ever really heard of. So it's like, one wonders how that happened. So Howard Saint becoming governor? Yeah, I can see it. I can see it. You never know.
So let's get some closing thoughts here, and what we'll rank this. I'll start with you, Adam.
I want to say that I enjoyed it. It's I think I like the story better than the movie, and as a novelization, I think it does a good job. Like as we've mentioned on this channel several times, our favorite type of novelization is one that's like not too long, not too short, like it's like a good amount, but it has a good amount of like stuff that's new and stuff that you've seen in the movie. Because if it's just, copy and paste the movie, then there's really nothing to it. But if there's like stuff that's added, it's like, it's like it's like getting to read that, the Schumacher cut of Batman Forever that we're probably never going to get, so getting like treasures like that. So
Yeah. What would you rank it?
I would give it, I'm going to give it an A-. It was very good, very well written. But I will say what kind of killed it for me is like what we mentioned, it was a little too chatty.
Mhm.
And there was like a little bit more puns for the Punisher than I think there should be. And the whole thing with John Saint running for governor, I didn't think was necessary. So, but I still think it was pretty well written. So I'm going to give it A-.
John, what are your final thoughts?
I'm going to be controversial. Okay. As a book, it's good. I enjoyed it as a story by itself. Like if I never even knew about the movie, if I never watched the movie, I would still like the story. It's a great little crime story. It keeps your attention all the way throughout. The characters are memorable enough. There's some stupid moments that are like, what? Why would you do that? But I'm going to say it's not a good Punisher story. This is something I've been wanting to say the whole stream here. This is not an ideal Punisher story, and I can kind of see why Punisher has never really broken out to the mainstream. The thing is, this is just a generic crime story, really. It's well written enough that I would read it again. 10 out of 10 would read again. But it's like, okay, you got the Punisher. He's supposed to be a superhero, all right? And his first villain is a guy who owns a car lot and wants to be governor of Florida. Okay? It could be anybody that would go up against him. My ideal Punisher story is where it's a little bit more bombastic, a little more memorable, a little more comic booky, a little less comic booky than some of the stuff that like Frankencastle or Angel of Death or whatever, but more like Punish the arcade game where like he's going up against, like the Kingpin. The Kingpin's got a bomb or a virus, whatever, some kind of comic book peril he can stop. He buzzsaws through some goons. I really liked the arcade game because you had Frank Castle and Nick Fury. That would make for some good interplay between the two. You kind of got that in the game. And it's something more memorable and less kind of a mess, a little more focused than what we got from the Punisher 2004. Good story. Not sure I would really have the Punisher in it.
Okay, and what would your ranking be?
I'd give it like A. I'd read it again. That's my ranking. I would actually read it again instead of just forget about it.
Marcel.
Yeah, so like I said, the first half was really, really strong, like A+ on that alone. Then it was like the 60% to 90% mark that really dragged for me, and I wasn't into it anymore. And then the last 10% of the book, I was really into it again when he goes after Howard Saint for the final time. For me, like the Punisher has always been one of my favorite heroes, and he's at his best when he's just like unloading like heavy ordnance against some mobster and just ripping up, the town because he's wants to punish or he wants to get revenge or whatever. I didn't see a lot of that in this book, which is fine. I think it still had sort of the elements to be a decent Punisher story, but I agree with John that it wasn't like the best representation. It's like a good book, but not a great Punisher book. For that alone, I would probably rank it in the B's, but because it was such a good book, I think I'm gonna have to go same as Adam and say like A minus.
Okay. My
Yeah.
thoughts on it are this. It adds a nice we live in an interesting kind of time where we have four versions of the same story. We have the theatrical cut, we have the unrated extended cut, we have this novelization and the comic book adaptation. Is this my favorite version of this story? No, but it's probably my second. I think there's a little too much superfluous things. There's some dumb references, like he says, "Oh, it's like a river of blood," because that was a Warzone arc that's famous from the Punisher Warzone comic of the 90s. Or the War Journal is very clunkily put into this.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit all that well. It's more organic in the um in year one, that comic, which is why they put this in. I also don't like it's a physical journal he's writing in because it was always tapes. It was always recording into a tape recorder. That's peculiar. There's a lot of peculiar things with this, a lot of weird changes, but overall, I have a lot of nostalgia for this. It's going to taint my opinion. So objectively, I give it a 4.2 out of 5. I really like this. I like that we have a Punisher novel, period. That's fun. Um, and I just I like this story. It's not the best. I think Warzone is more on point for the Punisher comics. It unfortunately has some really dumb late 2000s edgelord humor in it, and Jigsaw's lines are it's just him acting like the Joker, and his cannibal brother is just obnoxious.
Doug Walker's a cannibal? Didn't see it coming.
So anyway, what are we doing next month, Adam?
I'm not sure we've discussed what we were doing next month. We have talked about doing like another James Bond novelization at some point.
I think we should do World's Not Enough.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
Okay.
Before we do go though, I want to give a couple of shout outs. I want to give a shout out to Beyond the Page Audiobooks, who on his YouTube channel has the audiobook of this novelization.
Mhm.
So, and he's got other novelizations as well. Like I know he's done the Dark Knight trilogy, among other audiobooks. So, want to give a shout out to him. So, if you're interested to check this out and can't find this copy, go find Beyond the Page audiobooks. And the second shout out, I want to give to you, Jeremy, to say thank you so much for uh, carrying this season quite a bit when because me and Matthew have had to, take some time off for different reasons. But want to say big shout out to Jeremy. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah. Thank you for um, carrying the torch while I was gone at school for like 2 seasons. So I'm glad to help. So anyway, y'all have a good one. Stay Gucci, everyone.